Alright, Trickers and Trickers, time to take a look at the second episode of the day, which is The Ship. As the away team conducts their planetary survey, Chief O'Brien and young crewman Venus tease one another. They appear to be forming a close working relationship. Captain Sisko determines that, despite being long away from supply lines, the planet is a good place to mine Cormoline. He and Lieutenant Commander Dex are discussing the matter when a ship of some kind crashes on the planet's surface. Sisko asks Ensign Hoya to have the runabout team beam Sisko and the others to the site of the crash. They discover a Jem'Hadar attack ship. The away team, with their phaser rifles drawn, walk towards it. The crew find that the warship has landed upside down and entered through a hatch that would normally be used to land troops. Inside, they find numerous corpses, but according to Dex's tricorder, the troops have been dead for hours. Orion suspects an inertial dampener failure, which means that when the ship sped up, every bone in the men's bodies was crushed instantly. Though Sisko is excited about the discovery of the ship, he wonders what it was doing so far from Dominion space. Realizing the runabout's tractor beam will be insufficient to tow the ship, he sends for the USS Defiant to tow it back to the Alpha Quadrant. Aboard Deep Space Nine, Odo has arrested Quark and his co-conspirator, Dr. Bashir. The trio enters Sisko's office. Major Care learns that Quark ordered a shipment of Rigelian and flea spiders for Bashir without an import permit. Bashir intended to use the venom from the spiders to synthesize a drug to improve Major Kira's circulation. However, the Ferengi took the opportunity to smuggle illegal Rigelian liquid crystals along with the spiders. And Apisha Kira announces she is taking the Defiant to the Gamma Quadrant to retrieve Sisko and the others, and she'll be back in a week. Outside the Jem'Hadar vessel, Chief O'Brien tells Sisko he thinks they could get the ship out of the rock face by firing the main thrusters, but to do that, have to calibrate the plasma injectors. Meanwhile, Commander Worf informs Sisko that they have buried the bodies of the warship's crew, 42 Jem'Hadar and 1 Vorta field supervisor in all. Sally, Ensign Hoya contacts Sisko for the runabout and announces that another warship has just suddenly come out of warp. Within seconds, the runabout is destroyed over Toga 4, killing Hoya, Rooney, and Bertram. Immediately after the runabout's destruction, Jem'Hadar soldiers beam to the surface. There's a shootout in which another away team member, Talor, is killed, and Sisko and the others take shelter inside the crashed ship, but Munis is shot along the way. Oddly, the Jem'Hadar do not follow the Starfleet team into the ship. O'Brien just Munis' wound by ripping one of the sleeves off his uniform undershirt and using it as a bandage while they regroup and formulate a plan. The crew explores the ship and finds it minimalistic at best. Among other things, there are 2 headsets, one for Vorta and another for the Jem'Hadar First, which seems to be the Dominion equivalent of U-screens. They entered when Kalana, the Vorta in charge of the newly arrived ship, who contacts Sisko over the Dominion comm system. She offers to meet Sisko face to face with 1 guard each. Sisko agrees to meet Kalana, who is quite impeccable in person. However, she does not recognize Sisko's claim to salvage rights for the ship and wants it back. As she and Sisko talk, a lone Jem'Hadar beams into the ship and camouflages himself. The Jem'Hadar is carrying a piece of surveillance equipment. Meanwhile, Kalana offers to take Sisko and the others back to Federation territory, but Sisko firmly refuses. O'Brien finds the Jem'Hadar and there is a brief struggle before Munis manages to shoot the soldier, saving the chief from being stabbed. With Kalana aboard her ship and Sisko back inside his, O'Brien continues to Munis, who suspects he is dying. They realize there is an anticoagulant in his blood, an apparent side effect of the Jem'Hadar weapon, which is preventing the otherwise minor wound from healing. As a result, Munis is bleeding to death and requires immediate attention. Worf and O'Brien have a difference of opinion over this. While the Klingon believes Munis should be told to prepare for death, O'Brien gives that Munis' only chance is to keep fighting. Daxon changes the subject and asks Worf to help her look at the Einstein's matrix they found as Munis begins going into shock. Kalana contacts Sisko again and apologizes for her deception, offering to meet him unarmed and alone, a condition to which she does not hold him as a show of good faith. When they meet again, Kalana acknowledges the obvious. They have suddenly aboard Sisko's ship she wants. However, neither trusts the other, and Sisko refuses to let Kalana retrieve it. But Kalana refuses to tell Sisko what it is. She realizes their conversation is going nowhere, so she moves off to the surface as her ship begins to bombard the surface. Before long, the crew realizes that Kalana is not trying to hit the ship, as the ultranium concussion shells her ship is firing should destroy them in one hit. They continue to search for whatever Kalana wants, while Minas' condition continues to deteriorate and he becomes delirious. Tensions continue out as the Starfleet group, tired, hungry, and filthy, become increasingly apprehensive. Sisko becomes fed up with the bickering between Worf and O'Brien, and Dax's misguided attempts to lighten the situation with humor and sharply orders everyone to stop wasting time and start acting like professional Starfleet officers who know what they're doing. And then tells Worf and O'Brien to try and get the engines and weapons working, and orders Dax to search the ship no matter how many times it takes to find whatever Kalana wants. As the three Chesson officers leave to do their work, Sisko turns to Minas and orders him to stay alive. O'Brien does his best to get the ship up and running. When they attempt to take off from the planet, the power circuits overload and the condition of the ship's systems becomes even worse, leaving them with no choice but to wait for the Defiant to arrive. O'Brien tells Minas they could really use his help, only to find that the young engineer has died from his injuries, causing a deafening silence to wash over the crew. Dax later comforts Sisko and tells his friend that they need to get the ship back to Starfleet so that the families of the 5 dead officers won't feel that their loved ones died for nothing. Gloomy mood is interrupted when something begins to drip from the ceiling. They come to realize one of the bulkheads is actually a founder. The changeling is not attacking, but dying. Lunkerman holds its form and apparently injured from the accident that killed the ship's crew. As it dies, it cries out, loud enough for Kalana and her men to hear. With the changeling dead, Kalana beams directly aboard Sisko's ship, alone. She informs him that her soldiers kill themselves for allowing one of their gods to die. She says Sisko should have trusted her, but he says she was lying to him from the beginning. This wasn't her first mission outside the Dominion. She says she regrets lying, but all that mattered to her was rescuing the Founder. Sisko says she should have told him the truth. She says she was afraid they would kill the Founder if they knew about him. Sisko tells her all he wanted was the ship. Minas and the others died because neither Sisko nor Kalana was willing to trust the other. Dax confirms that the soldiers outside have killed themselves. Sisko allows Kalana to take some of the Founder's remains with her. Just before she leaves, Kalana asks Sisko if he has any gods that he believes in. He says he believes in some things. She asks, duty, Starfleet, the Federation? You must be pleased with yourself. You have the ship to take back to them. I hope it was worth it. Kalana then leaves, and Sisko can only hope that the ship was worth the lives that were lost for it. The Defiant arrives and tows the Jem'Hadar ship back to DS9. Starfleet is very pleased with the Defiant and awards the crew medals. Sitting alone in the Defiant's mess hall, Sisko laments the death of Muniz, Hoya, and the others while writing a report for Starfleet Command. Joining him at his table, Dax reminds Sisko that, while their deaths were certainly tragic, they knew all the risks when they joined Starfleet, and each officer was proud to wear the uniform and serve under him. Dax also notes that, while it may sound cold, from a practical standpoint, the captured ship might have cost 5 lives, but could help to save thousands or millions more. Sisko says he knows, and he would do the same thing all over again, but it's still unfair to those who died on a lonely planet so far from home. In the Defiant's cargo hold, O'Brien holds his own vigil for Minas' casket. Worf notices O'Brien's activity and tells him that it's similar to an old Klingon custom called Akvo, or keeping the body of a warrior who died in battle safe from predators while they make their journey to Sto-vo-kor. He offers to help O'Brien protect Minas, to which the chief responds, I'm sure Queek would have liked that. Aww. So anyway, let's take a look at the production of this episode. The exterior scenes for this episode were filmed at Soledad Canyon, a gravel pit north of Los Angeles, which has also been used for Cardassia 4 in the second season episode The Homecoming, and for Dozaria in the fourth season episode Indiscretion. Soledad was also used for the sixth season episode of Rocks and Shoals. As happened during the shoot for The Homecoming, however, temperatures became much hotter than anticipated, reaching as high as 124 degrees Fahrenheit or 51 degrees Celsius. According to director Kim Friedman, quote, we had bottles of water to pour over our heads. I'd call action, and by the time the take was over and I called cut, our close set hair were totally dry. I felt sorry for the actors. The rest of us were wearing shorts and almost nothing, and we couldn't stand it. About 5 o'clock, someone said, "Oh my god, the temperature's gone down a little bit." It was like 99 or 100, and we noticed, end quote. During the shoot for Rex and Shoals, it was even hotter. Caitlin Hopkins recalled filming in the desert, quote, "We shot in the middle of the desert and it was, I think, close to 113 degrees that day. The ship that we were standing on was metal. I can't even imagine what the temperature was with the sun beating down onto that metal and these heat waves. And as soon as we walked up and smack us in the face. And every time they would cut, they would bring water, trying to keep us hydrated and had chamois cloth soaked in ice water to put on our necks and wrists during breaks. So the poor actors who wore the Jemadar standing behind me, their headpieces covered their heads almost completely in rubber. And we were in the middle of a scene, all of a sudden I hear a big clunk behind me, and everybody else cut. One of them I fainted from the heat. I have to say it was one of the funniest things I'd ever watched. The playbacks, all of a sudden one Jemadar just falls out of frame. He was fine, just overheated. That was one of those moments where you were like, oh, the things I do for love of acting, end quote. Hopkins was honored to work with Avery Brooks. She commented, quote, "Wow, well, I was a young actress who had been raised in the theater, and there was this great actor who I knew his work in the theater outside of his success in television. It was incredible to work opposite him in those scenes. He has such incredible focus and plays strong intentions with high stakes. Nothing is ever casual in his work. I knew that going in and really took the time to study a few of the more recent episodes in terms of style and tone, so I can match whatever he gave me in the scenes. I knew to hold my own with him, I was going to have to work hard on this character and be very specific with every word I said. I have to say, it was also a little intimidating to be one of the first female Vorta. I knew the network executives and creative team on the show were extremely invested in everything being perfect when introducing a new character, so there was a pressure there to do it well. Even though I was a small part of Star Trek legacy, I felt a responsibility to make sure I really fit into the world, if that makes sense. The acting style on the shows was so specific, and you see that reflected in the number of actors who came from classical Shakespearean backgrounds. Anyway, it was an honor to work with Avery. He's a consummate professional, a gentleman, and a great, great actor, end quote. Ensign Hoy is the first Benzite female seen on Star Trek, and the first Benzite seen without visible breathing apparatus. Michael Kuda explains the absence of the apparatus by pointing out, quote, "There's been some advances in Benzite technology," end quote. The Benzites were introduced in the Star Trek The Next Generation episode, Coming of Age. And now finally, let's take a look at some trivia surrounding this episode. Jemadar weapons induce cellular disruption with the explicit intention of killing everyone they hit slowly, so that they will be a distraction for their comrades. The Jemadar attack ship captured here later reappeared in a time to stand in Rocks and Shoals, where it was used into Cardassian space to destroy Capital Cell White installation. The nickname Miles O'Brien uses for Kuma Muniz is pronounced Kike, a common Spanish nickname for Enrique. The scene in which Muniz teases O'Brien about Ireland having only hills but no mountains seems to be a nod to the 1995 film The Englishman Who Went Up a Hill but Came Down a Mountain, which starred Colm Meaney. The idea of Klingons keeping vigil over the bodies of the dead seems at odds with prior portrayals, when a corpse is considered a worthless shell immediately upon death. However, Work calls Akvo an old Klingon tradition. Perhaps it is no longer commonly practiced, but Worf was familiar with it due to his studies of ancient Klingon culture. It's also worth noting that in Lower Decks, Worf invented a Klingon ritual to help Sito Jaxa. O'Brien's visual is an example of their tradition of holding a funeral wake throughout the night. Star Trek Discovery introduced the Klingon sarcophagus ship, so clearly some Klingons want to honor their deceased comrades. Sisko's suspicion that Kalana may be immune to any poison potentially present in the food offered to him is later implicitly confirmed in Ties of Blood and Water, when he reveals that the Vorta are immune to most forms of poison. Kira Lofton, who plays Jake Sisko, does not appear in this episode, though he's mentioned by Sisko by Kalana and Cisco mentions to Dax that Jake and Muniz share the same birthday. Hmm. So overall, yeah, this episode is kind of interesting, and I do feel bad for what happened to Muniz. I mean, who knows? He might have been an interesting character if he had survived, but who knows? So yeah. So overall, I give the ship 4 warp cores out of 5. But anyway, tune in, but it's way to the final episode of the day, looking for Parmok in all the wrong places. So, until then, live long and prosper, everybody.